So, welcome. I'm here to do just a little quick look back on the Nintendo Virtual Boy and compare it to a system that I picked up pretty recently, the Nintendo 3DS XL. I've been really having a great time with the 3DS XL, and as I've been playing it, it just reminded me of 1995, 1996 when I picked up the Nintendo Virtual Boy, and I probably got it it came out in July, I believe, or August of 1995, maybe in August for the North American release. And, there was a significant amount of hype behind it. People were really interested in seeing if Nintendo could deliver on this virtual reality experience. And I think when people got it home and turned it on and realized that it wasn't the kind of immersive experience that they imagined, it was more of a limited 3D effect where you would see multiple planes of objects rather than being surrounded by a real kind of lived 3D world. People were let down, but I had picked up the Virtual Boy in probably early 96, and I probably paid, new at retail, maybe under $100 for it. I don't recall it being very expensive. But the games were still available pretty widely. I have some of them here. And it was really a conversation piece. You could have friends and family over and show it to them. They would be legitimately impressed by the novelty of the Virtual Boy. And despite the fact that the 3D that it produced was not perhaps what some consumers might have imagined, I think it was pretty fun to play these games featuring classic Nintendo characters and see it in kind of a three-dimensional world. I think the best two examples of that would be Wario Land and the Pac-In game, which was Mario Tennis. So, one of the things that reminded me of the Virtual Boy and wanted me to look back on it was picking up Kid Icarus for the 3DS XL, which is a good game, but it just really has a horrible control scheme, and no matter how long I tried to get into it, to me, it was just uncomfortable to play for long periods of time, and that discomfort led me back to the Virtual Boy. As you can see, the Virtual Boy was not really a portable system, and you had to, really get ready to play it, put it out on the table, make sure that the sort of angle of the top unit was perfect, so you can just kind of rest your forehead against the black flap there, and then you had to adjust the focus and the interpupillary distance, and maybe after a good 5 or so minutes of setup you could play it, and it had to be on a hard surface, and so you'd be hunched over the system. And it was fun, it was unique, and the 3D effect really was something different, but it took a good deal of effort to get there, and that's really what I felt with Kid Icarus. I'm sitting there playing this thing again, sitting at a table, using the stand, using the awkward sort of stylus plus trigger button shooting mechanic, and as I was playing it for a couple hours, I started to get fatigued, and I said, this fatigue feels familiar. This is the exact same fatigue I felt playing the Virtual Boy. And I think that these are, essentially products of the same lineage. Nintendo, briefly in that sort of elsewhere between the Super Nintendo and the N64, thought that, they did have something with the Virtual Boy, and that gaming in 3D was a realistic and potentially enjoyable possibility, but the hardware, the red LEDs and just the setup really prevented people from getting into the system. And I think the Virtual Boy, the 3DS, is really a culmination of the dream that began with the Virtual Boy. I even think, that visually they're related. I mean, some games, when you look at Kid Icarus, or Mario 3D Land, or Super Mario Kart 7, these are all games that I think produce impressive three-dimensional depth. That was something that the Virtual Boy could not do. But if you look at other games like really any of the RPGs, a recent Soul Hackers game, to a certain extent, Fire Emblem, or if just you look at Mario, New Super Mario Bros. 2, they all have 3D, planes, particularly in the RPGs where the text box will sort of pop forward and the characters will sort of be in the middle plane, and then the background is sort of set further back. I mean, that is the Virtual Boy style. And playing the 3DS XL has kind of taken me back, and it's, I think, fun. I think the Virtual Boy tried as hard as it could to deliver that visual novelty, and the 3DS, the 3DS XL, kind of complete that project. Now, of course, the nice thing about the 3DS and the 3DS XL is that at least I do not get any kind of visual disturbance or headaches after playing them for extended periods of time. The Virtual Boy, back in the day, I remember I'd play it for an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and I would come away with a mild but nonetheless noticeable headache. Now, of course, I would just kind of soldier on in the game. But now when I go back to play the Virtual Boy, I really get a headache. I wouldn't call it a crushing headache, but it lasts for a good 15 or 20 minutes after play. Whereas, finally, the 3DS and the 3DS XL offer an experience where you can just enjoy the 3D effect and immerse yourselves in the game and not really suffer any kind of discomfort. But of course, that in a certain sense was one of the charms, if you would want to call it a charm, of the Virtual Boy, is that you sat down, it took some effort, it kind of took a mild toll on your eyes, but it was really fun, and as a kid, I felt anyway that it was worth it, and I don't really have any kind of lingering problems from playing it for extended periods of time. But the 3DS definitely makes the 3D gaming experience much more enjoyable. It's not to say that it's perfect. I mean, you have to hold the 3DS at the exact right angle to enjoy games in 3D. If you sort of move the console or the handheld ever so slightly, you lose it, and you hope that maybe with the next generation of Nintendo handhelds that they will correct that if they continue going the 3D route. But yeah, the Virtual Boy is just one of those systems that I think has a unique place in the history of gaming, and I was brought back to it, and I wanted to go back and experience it again after my time with the 3DS, and really enjoying the 3DS, and kind of in the mindset right now that this is the most unique and entertaining console on the market, and it probably wouldn't have been possible without the Virtual Boy. So, the red VR console from Nintendo that only lasted a year, well, it was a flop, of course, but I'd like to think that it nonetheless had a pretty positive impacts, at least on Nintendo, as they move forward. So that is my take on the 3DS and the Virtual Boy. Thanks for watching.